Hi everyone, my name is Jim Hewitt. Welcome to Pepper. Pepper is a discussion board technology that's been developed at the University of Toronto. Now there are many different discussion board technologies on the market. In this video I'm going to highlight 8 different features that distinguish Pepper from other discussion tools. But before I do that, let me give you a 30-second introduction to Pepper. Most people find it quite intuitive and easy to use, so I'll give you just a brief tour. When you first log into Pepper, you are taken to the home screen. That's this screen. On the home screen, the instructor can create as many different discussion folders as they want. The instructor can easily reorder these discussion folders by dragging and dropping, like so. And they can also selectively hide individual folders from students or reveal them, depending on what they want the students to see. Now inside these discussion folders, students post messages and have asynchronous discussions. Let's go into course introductions so we can see that. So you can see a bunch of different messages that students have posted in this folder in which they're introducing themselves to each other at the beginning of the term. Now within each of these messages, I'll just click on them one at a time, students can post messages that contain text or video or images or audio. For example, if I scroll down to the bottom and look at this note that I've posted, you can see that I've written a text passage in which I introduce myself combined with a video. You can also embed in your note mathematical equations, images, audio passages, and so forth. So that's just a quick overview of Pepper. It's basically a series of folders, and then in each folder you have a discussion that is public and open to students. Now, Pepper has a number of features that differentiate it from other discussion boards, and so in this video, I'm going to try to highlight 8 of those features. The first feature that Pepper has is a very flexible way of presenting discussion areas. You can essentially create discussion areas within discussion areas. For example, if I go into week 5, you can see that it's a discussion area that's got 3 subdiscussions. And each of these 3 subfolders can have subfolders of their own. This feature is useful in several ways. First, it allows the instructor to break students up into subgroups, and that can be useful for keeping the size of discussions manageable. And second, it allows the instructor to pose different discussion questions in different folders. And finally, it allows all the discussions for a given week, in this case week 5, to be located in a single location that's easy to access. So many instructors make use of this folders within folders feature. The second feature, which you've already seen, is the split screen nature of Pepper. Let's go into this Misha folder so we can look at it a little more closely. The left side of the screen provides you with an overview of the discussion thread and where you are within that thread. So if I'm clicked here and I'm reading this note, you can see where I am within this particular thread. The reason for this is so you can always have a sense of context. When you're browsing through this discussion, you can see where you are located within the larger structure at all times. Most discussion boards don't allow you to see the structure of the discussion and the content at the same time, but it's a feature that we like to emphasize in Pepper. A third feature is the ability to toggle the right side of the screen between seeing individual posts, as I'm doing now, and seeing all the posts together as a thread. And to do that, you just click on this button up here or here. Sometimes it's useful just to see one post at a time. For example, you can see in this discussion that I've read 71 of the 72 notes. This one in boldface is one that I haven't read. If I click on it, I can see just this one note. And that's all I really need. On the other hand, sometimes I might come into this discussion and I haven't read any of the notes. In that case, it might be more useful for me to view the notes by thread. Now if I want, I can read the whole discussion from the top to the bottom by scrolling. And I can just scroll down, read everything that everybody has to say, and then once I'm done and I've reached the bottom, I can click on the there it is. I can click on the Mark All Notes as Read button, and it will mark me within Pepper as having read all of these notes. Now within thread mode, one of the kind of cool things is that you can jump quickly to any note you want by clicking on the left-hand side. So if I want to go immediately to Jesse's note, I can click on Fake News and Media Literacy, and Jesse's note will appear over here. Or I can click here on Reply to Joshua, and it will go immediately to that note. So toggling between note mode and thread mode allows students to display the content of the discussion in whatever way works best for them. Another feature of Pepper that I want to emphasize is the floating edit window. So let's suppose I want to reply to this note here by Misha. I click on Reply, a floating window comes up, and I can resize this window, make it as large or small as I want, or I can move it anywhere I want on the screen that I want. To post a reply, I simply say, reply to Misha, nice note, and then I can post it. And if I want, I can either delete this later or I can go in and I can edit it. Now, in many discussion environments, the edit window is fixed, and it's usually fixed at the bottom of a list of posts. For example, on a thread like this, you might have an edit area fixed at the bottom of all the posts down here. Now, the problem with this approach is that you can't scroll up and view other things without losing your edit window. In Pepper, the edit window is quite independent of the content. So for example, if I'm writing over here, I can scroll up and I can see any other note I want, take notes about that note, scroll up and get other information, write about that, and so forth. Essentially, I can read and I can write at the same time. And more than that, I can even leave this discussion entirely and get information from somewhere else in Pepper. So I can go to the home screen, for example, and maybe go into the course readings to look up an article. Or I can go into a different week's discussion and read that. So it's quite flexible. It allows you to get whatever information you need from wherever you need it without losing your ability to do the editing. Very powerful feature we find in Pepper is this ability to continually edit as much as you want. Now this leads us to another nice feature in Pepper, which we call note-to-note linking. One problem with most discussion environments is that it's hard to refer easily to other earlier entries in the discussion. But that's quite easily done in Pepper. Suppose I'm writing a little note here that says, I noticed that both Misha and, let's find somebody else, Misha and Dylan, Dylan had similar ideas. Okay, and I want to post this message. What I can do is put little embedded links right into my note that will take me to the notes that I'm referring to. So let's suppose this is the note that I've read that has Dylan's perspective on it. Dylan's note number is 706. So to create a link to Dylan's note, I simply click on the little link button, go to Link to Pepper Note, and I type in his note number 706. And similarly, to go to Misha's note, which is number 698, I type that in here. And now when I post the note, it goes down here at the bottom, and I've got my two links to their notes. Now, clicking on the word Misha here is not going to scroll me up to Misha's note, because then I'd lose track of where I am. What it does instead is when I click on Misha's note, it pops it up in a separate window. So the focus stays down here. When I click on Dylan, Dylan's note comes up here. So I can actually see them both at the same time while I'm still reading this note. So this is another aspect of Pepper that's very useful, the ability to link to other notes and pop up and view them, as many notes as you need, while maintaining your focus on the note that you've just produced. Popping is useful in some other ways as well. So I'm going to talk about this. This is our sixth element. Sometimes you want to, while you're reading, you're not ready to write yet, but you do notice that there's something interesting that you want to talk about. So how do you save that in a way that it makes it easy to come back to it at a later time? So suppose I'm reading through here and I find Sarah's notes really interesting, and I'm going to want to, I don't want to write about it now, but I'm going to come back to it later. I can pop it up. So we get a clone of that note here. And I'm just going to minimize it. And so what I'll do is I'll leave it at the top of my screen. Now I can keep reading. Here's another note. I'm going to pop that up as well and minimize it. Put it over here. And yet another note. Okay, so now I've gone through the entire discussion, and there's three new things that I want to talk about that people have written about. So now I can create my new note, and then I can reveal these so I can write about them again, like so. So again, this we feel is a fairly powerful part of Pepper, powerful feature, the ability to store notes that you find useful by popping them up, and then later you can attend to them when you start writing. Okay, so I'm going to switch tracks a little bit now and talk about a seventh feature, private replying, that we find very useful in Pepper. And this is the ability to communicate privately if you wish. Sometimes you want to provide feedback to somebody, but you don't necessarily want the whole class to see it. Now, you might be a student who wants to privately reply to another student, or you might be a teacher who wants to provide a student with private feedback. Creating a private response to somebody is very easy in Pepper. Suppose I want to reply to Vanessa's note privately. I can click on Reply. Suppose I just want to say something positive. Nice work. I think that captures my position too. And I click on Private Reply and then post it. There we go. So now this note that I've written is private. It'll be only visible to me and to Vanessa. And if we go down here, find my note, you can see it's visible just to these two people, Vanessa and Jim. The rest of the class has no inkling that this note is even here. And if a student replies to another student, the teacher won't see it either. So it is completely private. It's a nice way for students to provide confidential feedback to each other without necessarily embarrassing them in front of their peers. It's a nice way for instructors to provide constructive feedback to students as well. So this is a very popular feature in Pepper, and one that we find very valuable. Now, the last feature that I want to talk about is the ability to put students into groups. And we discussed this a little bit earlier, but suppose I want to put students into 3 groups here. And in some sense, the instructor's already done that with these 3 subfolders, but I'll show you just briefly how I might do it. You can click on this little green folder here, Create Subfolder. I'm going to call this Group 1, Group 2, Group 3. Close. Okay. Now, I find the best discussions occur when there are between about 6 and 10 students in a discussion. If you have too many people engaged in a discussion, then students tend to get overloaded reading all the posts, and individual posts get lost. People don't feel like they have as much of a voice. So grouping is an important instructional strategy. So I've created my 3 group folders, and here's how I put students into those folders. The first thing I do is I click on the folder itself. So I'm going to go into Group 1. Right now it's empty. There's no notes in it at all. Next, I'm going to click on this link, which defines who has access to this folder. You can see that I have a number of different options. The default option is to give students full read and write access. In this option, students can go into this folder, but they can only read things, they can't write. In this option, the folder is hidden, so I can see it as an instructor, but the students can't see it. And this is often useful when I'm preparing a folder before I want to have it exposed to students. And this fourth option, this is how I create group privileges. So I make it a custom permissions, and I click here, and then I decide who's going to be in the group. So I might say, I want these 8 people to be part of this group. Now, only these 8 people can go into this folder and save notes. Nobody else will be able to see it. So when I save this, which I've done, those 8 people can go into group 1, but no one else will be able to do so. For them, the folder will not even seem to exist. So you can do this for group 1, group 2, you can choose a different 8 students, and group 3, a different 8 students. And this is a very useful way of providing small groups that allow students to focus on, say, a particular issue or a particular topic. Now, if I want other students to be able to go in but not contribute notes to the folder, I can go like that. Now Jess and Chris and Tom and so forth can all go into the folder, but they can only read what these 8 folks have said. They can't actually post notes. Okay, so that's it. So that's a brief summary of some of the distinctive strengths of Pepper, namely this idea to have folders within folders, the split screen aspect that shows you where you are in a discussion, the ability to toggle between multiple views of the discussion, seeing individual notes and threads, the floating resizable edit window, the ability to link between notes, the ability to pop and port notes into their own windows for later viewing, private responses, and finally, easy instructor tools for grouping students. Thanks for listening. Please contact us if you have any questions. We're always pleased to help.